I fucking love video games. Gaming has always been a part of my life since as far back as I could remember. As a millennial, I was fortunate enough to be there when the most primitive of gaming consoles came out. Some of these games I grew up on would be looked back at by Gen Z as the technological equivalent of lighting a fire with flint and stone. Yet, at the time, they were entrancing to us. Having a tiny little 2D Italian plumber hit blocks with his head and stomp on walking mushroom people was all we needed for countless hours of entertainment. As limited as they were, these games were a marvel for its time. And to see them grow more and more complex, gain better and better graphics, and have each game be drastically more enjoyable than the next was, well, an experience to say the least. Now the youth simply has to click one button and be transported into a world almost indistinguishable from reality and encounter no barriers whatsoever. Want to jack a car or run over some disgusting amount of citizens and be chased by police until you meet a deadly demise? Turn on GTA 5. Want to pursue a nuclear wasteland while gunning down giant radioactive spiders? Throw on Fallout 4. Want to literally be Harry Potter? Jump into the world of Hogwarts Legacy, although God knows why you would want to do that. Gaming in today's culture has reached heights I didn't even know was possible, and in the future, it looks even more amazing. So how did it shape a millennial like me? Well, you see, I've been an avid gamer since I was just a boy playing Madden 94 on my big clunky gameboy on Long Island road trips with my family. When I wasn't on the go, I'd fire up my Sega Genesis to play Winter Olympics 94, Echo the Dolphin, or perhaps one of the most underrated games of all time, Home Alone. So get this. The premise of the game, was that a poorly pixelated Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern were going to rob every house on your block. So what did you do? You rode around in your sled and broke into every of your neighbors' homes to set traps of race cars, icy steps, and doorknob-triggered flamethrowers. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's as amazing as it sounds. Even my uncle caught on to how much I love video games and bought me a Sega Saturn in 1995. If you've ever heard of that, kudos to you. So he bought it for me so I could play a slightly more 3D version of Sonic the Hedgehog and Street Fighter. It was actually kind of worth it. As I got older, Game Boy started to become colorized. And yes, media was black and white sometimes back in the day, guys. God, kids today must think of that and wonder, did they ride their horse and buggies to town square and pay a whole nickel for soda pop? This was the 90s, kids, not the turn of the century, and we had clunky cell phones that played only one game on it, and it wasn't Raid Shadow Legends. It was a game called Snake, and it was more addicting than hardcore drugs. However, it was also around this time that Nintendo did a 360, or should I say a 364? You get it? Because Nintendo 64, I'm so sorry. But it changed the game as we knew it, with classics that we still enjoy today like Zelda Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye, Mario Kart and Mario Party. The hits for Nintendo in the late 90s were on another level. Have you ever heard of a game called Conker's Bad Fur Day for N64? If not, please give it a playthrough. If not for me, then the love of blatant offensive content alone. After Nintendo, there was a brief period where strange consoles came into the mix, such as GameCube and Dreamcast. Although many people would consider these failures, GameCube did bring us a now beloved Legend of Zelda game called The Wind Waker, which, barring the cheesy, cartoonish graphics, still holds up to this day in my opinion. However, the next bomb to drop was a doozy. It was the turn of the millennium, and after we all came to grips that computers weren't going to revolt on mankind, we were blessed with something called the console wars between PS3 and the new Xbox. Now, as a PlayStation guy, I have to say that I am biased. I mean, Grand Theft Auto 3 alone was enough to sway me to buy that over that strange green console thing. But making that decision did draw me away from becoming a Halo nut, which, check this out, my neighbor Brian became, and he became obsessed with it. Now, we were best friends since God knows when, probably kindergarten. But we became so obsessed with our different consoles that inevitably we lost interest in hanging out with each other, and I haven't seen the kid to this day. I hope you're doing well, Brian. Now, I'd say, other than current day me, this was the zenith of my gaming days. Every other day I was buying a new PS3 game, which were becoming more complex, difficult, and downright more entertaining than anything I've ever experienced. MMOs like BioShock, Metal Gear Solid, and The Last of Us completely blew my mind. And as sports was starting to become less and less a part of my life, mainly because I failed at a JV ball, video games became my safe haven for when I was feeling introverted and antisocial. However, at some point, I did get older, and I did become social. Senior year gave way to college, and all I wanted to do was go out, get drunk, and meet pretty girls, which I did. It was an amazing part of my life, and I'll never forget it, but it did put me on a hiatus from video games for around 5 to 7 years. It wasn't until my mid to late 20s when, driving home from work, I impulsively stopped by a GameStop and said, you know what, give me one of those PlayStation 4 whatchamacallits. I sat down in my new apartment with my then brand new girlfriend and now current day wife and plugged in the console for the first time in forever. Immediately, I was transformed back into a world I missed so much, and missed much I had. My favorite game, and arguably still to this day, The Last of Us, got a major update, so I started with that. God, I miss Joel and Ellie so much. When I was done with that, I went back to a game I missed since being away called the Uncharted series, maybe you heard of it. And I was just flabbergasted at how amazing these games have gotten. But then it happened. Well, stopping back at GameStop on my way home from work, which if you can't tell by now, I do that quite often, I picked up a little game called The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, thinking, you know what, this looks up my alley. Now, at the time, Game of Thrones was at its height of popularity, and I had become a mega fan. I was reading A Storm of Swords at the time and going by my friends' houses every Sunday to tune into the newest episode, so needless to say, the world of high medieval fantasy is definitely my game. So I bought it. I came home, I slid the disc into the slot, giggity, and had no idea what I was doing. At the time, I didn't know where to go after Helgen, so I just found a little village off a river and just lit everybody up with arrows. I inevitably died by either guards or some buff Nord wielding a battle axe or something, I forget. I got frustrated and I put it down thinking I may have wasted $60, but something told me to pick it up. So I did a couple weeks later after watching some YouTube tutorial videos, and next thing you know, I was a level 60 Dragonborn Dark Brotherhood vampire badass killing dragons with a little flick of my pinky. I was hooked and I wanted more. So I went onto YouTube and Twitch and watched other people play Skyrim, but noticed that their game was vastly different than mine. I mean, how could that be? Was there a version of the game I wasn't aware of? There was no PS5 at the time, so it couldn't have been that. So I listened closely and heard one of the gamers use a term called modded Skyrim. Like the old soul that I am, I immediately Googled the term and couldn't believe what I was reading. You're telling me that I could literally change the game I was playing and enter new worlds with new characters and new everything? All I needed was something called the gaming PC? Well, sign me up! You see, PCs to me were things you used to check work emails and create useless Excel sheets of monthly expenses. So now you're telling me that they could be used for games now? Hell yeah, I needed one. So I went on to Craigslist and met up with this super chill Korean dude from Flushing that refurbishes gaming PCs. And I bought one for $300. A few hours and YouTube how-to videos later, and my game evolved into something unrecognizable from the original Skyrim. I ventured into new dungeons, wearing awesome new armor, finishing a brand new fan-designed quest with brand new fan-designed companions. It was seriously some next-level stuff, and all possible because Bethesda Studios opened up the game to a community of fans to recode and alter the game as they see fit, and boy does it work. So now PC gaming has officially become my new thing, and I slowly transformed into one of those pretentious PCs so much better than console guys. I'd stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning downloading new quests or even new games that were only available through Steam. I mean, I was like a kid in a candy store with Dad's credit card and a massive sweet tooth. But believe it or not, after my 2 millionth playthrough, I started to become a little bored. But boy, oh boy, the timing could not have been better. So one day while doom scrolling Reddit, I came across a post that Naughty Dog was releasing The Last of Us Part 2. Not only that, but it was on the new PlayStation 5. It was all I could do not to propel myself off the couch into the nearest Best Buy to get one. Now at this point, I had compiled a gaming PC, had PlayStation 4, and even bought myself a Nintendo Switch, but only to play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which was amazing at the time. But now that I look back on it, it was only entertaining because of how starved I was for new Zelda content. The boss battles sucked in Breath of the Wild, but the exploration did make up for it, so I don't know, I'm conflicted. But anyway, getting back on topic, I had 3 consoles and didn't know what to do, but figured, why not, right? So I immediately bought myself a PS5. Now, it is with great pleasure I admit to you that the PS5 did take me out of that PC-only mindset and back into the world of consoles, and thank the gods that it did. I mean, the graphics took a huge 4K turn for the best, and games previously released on the PS3 and PS4 were now getting updates and re-releases on the new engine, which flung me into the world of games I missed, such as Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, you want to talk about games that could stand toe-to-toe with any modern-day movie? Here it is. These games were entrancing. The Last of Us Part 2 alone, regardless of what you think about it, legit made me, a grown man, cry uncontrollably multiple times throughout that game. I mean, that's powerful. In fact, it's so powerful that one can argue modern-day gaming is the greatest form of entertainment that exists. Point blank, period. I mean, think about it. Picture your favorite book or your favorite movie. Now, imagine you were transported into that world to physically be the main character. Control where he or she goes, what he or she does, who he or she saves, what bosses or villains you get to slay to save the day. This is a video game in a nutshell. It is an active artistic experience that has come so far that sometimes it is indistinguishable from your latest Netflix or HBO series. Take one of my favorite contemporary games, Ghost of Tsushima, for example. Not only does photorealism plunge you into a world basically identical to reality, but the main character, Jin, experiences true heartache and pain throughout his journey to avenge his father, to save the Japanese people on the island from the Mongolian invaders, and to save his uncle, who has been his father figure since his real dad passed away. We become Jin in the game, thus we share his anguish and his strife, which, with each level, all his glory, all his honor, his defeats, his victories, it feels amazing. Yes, it is vicariously living the life of an animated character, which some people may consider nerdy, but is it? Is it as nerdy as loving a novel so much that you can't put it down? Or as nerdy as binge-watching a series because you can't wait to see what happens next? Of course not. It is every bit a piece of art as any of the media is, I would argue. It is far superior today than the state of modern-day Hollywood, and that is a fact. You know, one time when I was a hot-headed youngster, I turned to my dad, God rest his soul, and asked him what he was listening to on his CD player. He responded by saying Tchaikovsky. The look I gave him was incredulous. I rolled my eyes as if I know what good music was. He immediately noticed, so he asked me if I'd like to listen. It was my dad, so I obliged and put the headphones on, but I have to admit it was beautiful. Although I didn't get teary-eyed or anything, my dad did see the expression on my face and asked me what I thought. So I replied honestly, but just enough to save face and remain cool. He laughed and he said, "Son, one day you'll realize that good art, true art, is the kind that will reach into your soul and make you feel." Now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it was almost to a T what he said, and I will never forget it to this day. Whether it's Joel calling Ellie his baby girl, Peter Parker mourning the inevitable death of his family beside their deathbed, Geralt anxiously searching for the girl he considers to be his destiny, or just Mario swinging Bowser around by his tail to save his beloved Princess Peach. It makes no matter. True art will always keep you hooked and curious. It helps us grow, shapes who we are, and for me that art will always be video games. Oh, and music too. I do love music, like, a lot. Learn an instrument, people. It's an amazing experience, and you'll be glad that you did it. Anyway, I hope you liked my first video, guys. If you'd like to like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. I don't expect it. But, yeah, hope you liked it. Take care, guys. Bye.